So Gonzalo Montiel passes his medical with flying colours and is set to be announced as a Nottingham Forest player officially very soon. But how's he going to fit into Steve Cooper's setup? Let's find out. Welcome to the analysis on Montiel. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Whatever time of day you're watching this, hope you're having a fantastic day. And welcome to the special edition of the player analysis for Gonzalo Montiel. In today's video, we're going to break down his season last year at Sevilla, where he played, what positions he took up, how he fares up, is he good at attacking, is he good at defending, what formation he will play, and we'll compare him to Aurier and then look how he fits in to Steve Cooper's system and Steve Cooper's style. If you are enjoying this content, please take a second if you don't mind and hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new. So the Football Content Awards are now open and taking nominations, and here at FFTV we'd like to put ourselves forward for a couple of the categories. First one we'd like to do is Best Podcast. We really enjoyed doing Beat the Drop last season with the boys, and hopefully you guys did as well. So we would like to put that one forward. Also, for Best New Content Creator, Forest Fan TV has now been going for a year, and we'd quite like to enter that category. And then the last one is Best Club Content Creator for the Premier League. If you guys are willing to support us, you don't have to. It's completely free to do. The link is in the description and pinned to the comments as well. But at the very least, if you could support any Forest content creator, I know they'll join me in saying a massive thank you for all your support. Let's get into the video and let's talk about our new signing. All right, guys, so let's get into this and let's start analyzing Gonzalo's performances for Sevilla last year. And let's start to get a feel of how he shapes up on the pitch. Now, we'll start with the heat map because it wouldn't be an FFTV video without one when we're doing an analysis. And as you can see, he hugs the touchline quite a lot in terms of where he picks the ball up. And predominantly, a lot of it is in that middle to final third of the pitch. He really doesn't do much work in the first third. And with the way we're currently playing our style of football, this might be against his normal nature and how he likes to play. And he may find himself in more defensive positions. So it could be interesting to see how he reacts to those. And what I'd say is just by looking at the heat map, straight away, that looks to me like a heat map of a right wing back rather than a right back. But his actual preferred position and the position he played the majority of his games at Sevilla, as you can see just above my head here, was at right back. So can he make that adaptation? Is that something the recruitment team have looked at and thought this guy can switch between right back and right wing back, even though for Sevilla and internationally with Argentina, most of his time has been spent at right back? Or is this an indication of potentially a switch in formation for Nottingham Forest and us going to a back four, maybe against, non-Big Six teams, etc. So it's something we'll pick up on more in just a second. But I do want to run through these stats. Now, in terms of his attacking stats, not really that great. No real goals coming out of him. 2 big chances missed. Nothing major to scream about in terms of actual finishing. And this is really what these attacking stats are looking at here. So when we get into the passing stats, well, you see a little bit of improvement, but honestly, not too much. And for someone who spends a lot of time in the opposition half, I probably would have expected this to be a little higher. Now, bear in mind, Sevilla didn't have their best season in terms of league position last year. Obviously, they did what they normally do and win the Europa Cup. So in the league, they finished quite low. So you'd have expected them to be, absorbing a lot of pressure, a bit like we did last year. But nonetheless, he's expected to create 2.53 assists. Now, that's not per game. That's per season. And he actually got 3 assists all season. So he actually got more assists than he was expected to. And the expected assists are kind of those really good balls that are played into those danger areas that create a chance. In terms of touches, he averages about 37.8 touches and he's created 4 big chances. And then what I want to talk to you guys is the passing accuracy. Per game in La Liga, he was at 81%. Now, La Liga is somewhat of a slower league than the Premier League, a bit less pressing, a bit less closing down. And I would expect that percentage to come right down when he starts to play for Nottingham Forest, because the press is higher. Forest traditionally at the moment are counter-attack, low block, call it what you want. So not going to get too much time and too much space to progress passes forward. So you're probably going to see long balls being hit. And when you look at his long ball accuracy, it's not too bad in the greater scheme of long ball accuracy. You can't always be accurate. There's a lot of clearances that will happen at right backs. But as you can see here, it's at 38%. Now, if we move on to his defensive stats, so throughout all the games he played, they only ever had one clean sheet, and he only makes 0.7 interceptions per game and less than a tackle a game. Now, would I expect him to make more tackles? Yes, especially in the position Sevilla found themselves last year. And that does worry me a little, because if you look at, midfielders who probably get to see a lot more of the ball at times, they'll average 3, sometimes 3.5 to 4. We showed you that with the CDM video we did a few weeks back. But with a right back, I still would expect them to get stuck in if their team is a bit more defensively minded. And tackles per game is quite low for him, in my opinion. You guys may disagree. But that's really the kind of main stats I want to show you guys. In terms of things like yellow cards, he was quite rash. He does have a reputation for picking up a yellow card. He got 8, and he's had 1 red card as well during the season last year. And in terms of duels won, it's about 46%. And in terms of successful dribbles, about 45%. So when you look at it stats-wise, he's okay. If I'm being honest with you, they don't, overwhelm me when I have a look at them. But what's interesting is when we compare him to Aurier, who he will potentially replace. And I've got a little graph here for you, one of these Dino-style pentagons, or is it a hexagon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pentagon ones. And Aurier's color is in purple on this, and Gonzalo's is in green. And you can actually see that Aurier outstats him on everything apart from creativity. Defensively, Aurier is way stronger than him. Tackling-wise, Aurier is stronger than him. Attacking-wise, they're pretty much the same. In fact, Gonzalo takes it by 1 point. Technically-wise, Aurier is better as well. So, is he an upgrade on Aurier? That's probably the question. Now, stats can only paint a certain amount in a picture. They can't tell you everything. There's maybe we saw it the weekend with Morgan Gibbs-White when he was playing. His stats look good, but when you analyze his performance, for example, I don't think he had his best game for Nottingham Forest. So there's only so much stats can tell you, but it's good to get an understanding of what these stats do say. So what do you guys think of the stats? Let me know in the comments down below. Are you surprised? Were you expecting better? Were you expecting worse? Or is it about right for how you felt about the player? All right, guys and girls, so let's have a look at how potentially he could fit in to Cooper's formation. Now, we're seeing this back 3 or back 5, whatever it is at the moment. So I'm going to start with that, and we'll develop it into some other options. And it would have to be a straight swap for an Aurier or a Nico Williams, potentially. A Biancone, I don't think it'd be a Biancone. He doesn't seem to be getting a sniff. Now, with the talk of Aurier maybe going to Saudi in his stead, that would make sense to me. Where I will get confused about this signing is if we still keep Williams, Aurier, Biancone, Montiel. We've got Drager still in there. Einar technically can play right back or right wing back as well. We seem to be very, very heavy on fullbacks at the moment, and most of them seem to be right-sided. But anyway, that aside, let's have a look at how he would fit. And because we know he likes to get up and down this wing so much, you're probably going to find his average position is somewhere in and around here. And that could create spaces in behind him. Now, it could be quite similar to what we saw in the championship season and the promotion year, where what you would see is Joe Worrell starting to pull out in behind to plug that hole that Spence used to leave when he would attack. Now, Montiel could be really beneficial to Brennan Johnson, because again, I'm not liking him to Jed in terms of his pace. His pace is good, by the way, but in terms of what he's going to try and do, you could start to see, if Jono is still here, for example, a lot of overlapping like Spence used to do, and then link up play between the two of them. And that will require someone like Worrell to step out here into this position if Forest are attacking, and then the other two to kind of back it up and square it off around the back. And that creates a lot of width. Look, I'm not against a back three or a back five formation if it's done correctly. Because if you then have Einar, who's very, very nippy up and down that wing, you could end up in a very attacking style formation with a 1E here, MGW holding the edge of the box, say a Danilo there and a Yates maybe holding, or between Danilo and Yates, they can switch. And that probably ends up too attacking. I can't see too many scenarios where Forest overcommit these players, but maybe against, well, we should have against a Sheffield United, for example, or a Luton, etc. Those type of teams. This could be the style that Forest and Steve Cooper are looking to push through. And on paper, it does look quite good. It does look quite attacking. There are a lot of numbers forward, and there's still a plenty of numbers back. But for Forest to become this committed into an attack, I feel it does require at least Niakate, if not him and Felipe being back there, to be able to hold a bit of a higher line to release some of those players. But that roughly could be the style and shape you see the attack happening. And I am not, like I said, likening him to Spence, but I am in terms of mentality and the approach of the game. Now, is he going to provide us enough crosses? Well, based on his stats, no, we're not going to see too many of those. But what we might see is him getting in behind or allowing Johnson in behind, where they can potentially double up on the opponent's left back, for example. And that could force the opponent's back a little bit. Now, I'm not saying bringing him in is going to change the game completely, and this is the missing jigsaw piece for Nottingham Forest, because I still believe the problem is here in terms of having a CDM, and it just so happens I'm holding Yates. It's not Yates I'm talking about, it's the position. If we can anchor this midfield with a good CDM, then that does release even more players with a license to get forward. And that for me is the key to it all. So expect to see him there. The problem we'll have is when it becomes the defensive shape, because what you will see is he can be out of position quite a bit, and he might find himself up the pitch, leaving a big hole there. Danilo's going to have to track back. Yates is going to have to track back, and then Worrell's almost going to play like a right back. And if the opponents are quick and savvy about their counter-attack, we will and potentially will see balls kind of put in across the top, bringing him in over the top there into this gap for their pacey wingers maybe to get in behind. So it is quite risky bringing him in and potentially exposing ourselves in that right-hand channel. But that's how I think it would work in a back three or a back five. Get your thoughts in on that down below. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, Montiel has played most of his games at right back in a back four. So how would this work for Nottingham Forest? Now, potentially it could be a 4-3-3, a 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1. I've just set it up like that because it was quicker, no other real reason than that. But also a 4-2-3-1 is what Sevilla used. It's what Argentina used as well when he plays internationally. So it is a formation he should be very familiar with. And what it allows him to do with his higher starting position, it almost creates a 3 in a midfield there. And if Einar's doing the same, then you get yourself a 4 across the middle with the overload with MGW there, and then the 2 wingers in, say, Elanga and Jono. So again, it can look quite creative. Honestly, I look at this team on paper and I think there's so much potential to be unleashed from it. You look at it on paper and you kind of get quite excited by it. But with him in that position, it really would expose, especially if Einar's gone up, it exposes the flanks. And I feel it can only really be done with Felipe and Niakate in there, or Niakate and Bolly. I don't think a McKenna and Worrell combo is strong enough to really hold down a back four. So until Niakate's back in, I know Felipe's not a million miles off going back into training, etc. It may be a while before we see something like this. We have seen it in second halves, both at the Arsenal game and at the Sheffield United game on Friday. So I feel like it is in the back of Cooper's mind to maybe develop into this. But it could also change into a 4-3-3. But back to the point of this video is, of course, Montiel, and this is a formation he's very familiar with. Now, with it only being a 2, again, it gives him that channel and that freedom and that space to run up. But the problem is now, when you get someone, say Felipe, who has to cover that void that is left behind, now you're down to just one centre-back who's sitting there. And again, the CDM becomes important, whoever that CDM would be, to be able to marshal in front and sometimes potentially dip themselves back in to create a bit of a wider wall. So, does it work in a back 4? Yes, if the centre backs are correct and if you have a CDM, unless of course you go for the 4-3-3 formation. But it looks more comfortable to me in a 3-back formation with the current personnel that we have available and ready to us. So for me, in summary, Montiel could be a very good signing. After all, he's a World Cup winner. I think attacking wise, he tries to attack a lot, but his end product isn't quite there. And he may have a bit of a learning curve getting into the Premier League and getting up to speed with the pace of the game. Defensively, be it Premier League or the Spanish League, he has struggled to be disciplined in his position and ends up a bit ahead of the ball. So we may have to keep an eye out for that. And I'm sure the recruitment team, the management team, etc. are aware of that. But overall, for 9 million, 9.4 million with a loan, we don't know if it's yet an obligation to buy or just a straight out option to buy. It's not going to break the bank. But I wouldn't have put it as a priority position still. For me, it's that CDM role. And from what I've shown you there, hopefully that makes sense, how that can anchor the team and then allow the creative players to get forward and potentially put in an extra midfielder because we can take one out of the back 3. But get your thoughts in on it. Are you happy with this signing? Do you think, well, I guess my real question for you is, was this your priority signing, getting in a right back? Now, him coming in, winning the World Cup, obviously comes with prestige and may have some kind of pull for other players to go in. We know we've got the other Argentinian very close to signing for Nottingham Forest. There's been a few other links. We will cover them for you later on in a transfer video. But if you want to see Montiel in action in the flesh in real life, then stay tuned and click on the link coming up right here where we cover it off in the high press and you get to see him in the flesh in action and you can make your own judgments on his play style. Before you leave as well, if you've enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new, and we'll see you on the transfer updates. And as always, come on, you Reds.